What is up, everybody? Mr. Curtis here. Welcome to our next unit, which is on the build up to World War II and World War II itself. Call this the totalitarians and the war. So here's the deal. Keep in mind that what we talked about in the last unit, which is World War I and the Russian Revolution, directly connected this World War II. So I want to kind of explain what's going on, get into who takes over, what happened. So just kind of a reminder after World War I, and some of these we talked about, is there's problems after World War I, especially with the Treaty of Versailles. Remember in the Treaty of Versailles, which ended World War I, officially ended World War I, there were a couple countries who were unhappy at the end of World War I with what the Treaty of Versailles said. One was Germany. Germany is put to blame for World War I. They're forced to pay a lot of money for World War I. So there's some anger there, which I'll get to in a second. Also, we have Italy and Japan, who were promised land after World War I, and they didn't feel like they got all of the land they deserved for fighting on the winning side. So these two countries are going to, all three of these countries are going to be a little bit angry and outraged at the Treaty of Versailles, which leads to a lot of discontent or outrage within the country among the populations. Generally, when people in the country are angry at something like the Treaty of Versailles that their government signed, their anger really gets directed towards the government itself. So a lot of these countries, the government that was around in World War I and immediately after World War I is going to face a lot of this anger towards these the populations of these specific countries. Also, in 1929, we really, and into 1930s, we see the Great Depression start. And I know at some point you've talked about this before, and one of the causes of this is the stock market crash in the United States. Basically, people's the stock that they own, if you remember, stock is owning part of a company, was inflated. It was worth more than it really should have been. So for example, IBM, which is an American company, which makes computers, and technologies, the price might have been $100 to own one piece of IBM. And then when the Great Depression or the stock market crashes, that stock share, because no one's willing to buy it and everyone's trying to sell their share. So when there is a supply of something, the share in this case, the demand goes down. And when demand goes down for these stocks, the price drops because no one's willing to pay what you paid for it yesterday. So this stock, which might have been worth $100 yesterday, that you had the piece of paper, this piece of paper is basically worth $100. Tomorrow, no one's willing to pay $100 for it, and everyone's only willing to pay $3. So you have officially just lost $97. $97 isn't a big deal, but if you own 1,000 shares or 10,000 shares of a stock, or you're a bank and you own millions upon millions of dollars worth of stock, the stock market crash hurts your business and you lose money like that. So a lot of money is lost in the stock market crash. Also with the Great Depression, it's not just the stock market crash. We have too much production. Companies are making too much as a result of the Industrial Revolution and the end of World War I. We have companies who are making way too much. And by the end of the 1920s, people aren't buying all of this stuff that's being made. So for example, there are warehouses that are filled with bed frames, for example, and no one's buying bed frames because everyone has bed frames already, but the companies are still making too much of it. So all of a sudden, all of these companies that have too much stuff and aren't selling it, they can't do anything with it. So these companies start losing money from making too much stuff that no one's buying. And the third is there's this huge unequal distribution of wealth. The rich have a lot of money, and I believe it's the top 1% of people at this time, at least in the United States, owned about 25% of the wealth. So 1/4 of all the wealth in the country was to 1% of the people, which meant the other 99% had to fight essentially over the other 75% of the wealth. So this unequal distribution left a lot of middle class and lower class people with not a lot of money to spend. And if you can't spend, you can't buy. And if you can't buy, it leaves a lot of stuff in these factories and in these warehouses because no one can afford it. So these things all kind of are working simultaneously and cause the Great Depression. Most people didn't see it coming. It wasn't like, hey, there's going to be a Great Depression tomorrow. And it didn't just happen one day. It wasn't like, oh, Great Depression happened. And then the next day it's like, here it is. It's a slow process over years where suddenly, you look back and 4 years later, you're like, wow, we have 30% unemployment. We really should have saw that coming. So a couple images here from the United States, at least, of the Great Depression. This is probably one of the most iconic or famous images right here of a mother looking worried with her children. Kind of some individuals here. You can see a lot of barefoot, look dirty. Some people say, why can't you give my dad a job? So the question becomes, what are governments going to do to solve these problems? And a new government emerges in some European countries, Germany, Italy, and Spain, to be exact, called fascism. Fascism is a word that gets thrown around a lot, even in the United States today. And what it means to be a fascist, or what fascists are are totalitarian. So you have total control over all aspects of people's lives: social, economic, political, cultural. We have extreme nationalism. It is really this belief. It's not just like, yay, I love the United States. It is the United States is right. If you don't agree with what we say in the United States, we will break off relations with you. We will come and invade you. We are the best country. And as the best country, you, as a citizen of this country, your rights don't mean as much as it is for the importance of this country. Basically meaning the country comes before the individual. You are just a cog in the wheel of this country. And this country is really the most important thing. You are just one little piece of it. We're going to take away some of your rights, but it's for the good of the country. Very similar to communism under Stalin. Also, one party. We're going to eliminate all other political parties. So, for example, the Nazi party in Germany is going to eliminate all other political parties. We're going to terrorize them. We're going to mock them. We're going to put out publications that they're liars, they're cheaters, they're thieves, and that the Nazi party is the way to go. And slowly we're going to get rid of those parties and outlaw them. We see the same thing in Italy, where they eliminate these parties. The fourth thing is we have one leader who is seen as all-powerful. Generally, in fascist countries, this leader takes on a persona where I am always right, you are always wrong, what I say goes, and people usually buy into this. They like this kind of strong man leader who is seen as this iconic person who can do no wrong. And no matter what they say, whether they're telling the truth or they're lying, people buy into it and believe it. And the last part of this is extreme militarism. We're going to see the building up of militaries. This idea that if our military is strong, no one will mess with us. And anyone who is an enemy of ours better watch out, because we will drop bombs, we will destroy them, we'll roll in with tanks and soldiers, and we will wipe the enemies off the face of the map. Basically saying, don't mess with our country. And these characteristics kind of define this movement called fascism. And you got people who are angry at the Treaty of Versailles and their government. You got people who are struggling to make ends meet, and someone comes in and says, we're going to fix this stuff, and I'll show you the way. Just trust me to do it. And people buy into this. And we're going to see two really fascist leaders that we're going to talk about. One is Benito Mussolini. He's going to be the Italian leader. He served in Italy in World War I, and after the war is over, he forms what he calls the Fascist Party in Italy. This is him right here. This is another picture of him giving a speech in, I believe, Rome. You can see all the crowd down here. He usually spoke on high platforms, and we'll watch some of the videos of him in class, but he spoke on these high platforms, giving him the air of importance. He's higher up than people, and people would come and listen to his speeches. Anyone who opposed Mussolini, he had a group together called the Black Shirts. And these Black Shirts would basically, they wear black shirts, would go around and they would beat up those against Mussolini. You can see the salute here, which is very similar to what you're going to see in the Nazi salute under Hitler. And Hitler's going to use a lot of ideas from Mussolini. But anyone who went against him, if you talk bad about him, they would come and terrorize people. And if you didn't support him, they would terrorize you. If you were a news publication and you wrote bad things about Mussolini, they would come into your newspaper office and just destroy all the equipment so you couldn't write anymore, and would basically publish stories about how evil you were, essentially. Mussolini is going to overthrow the government. He walks in to this government in Italy who is not being supported with his black shirts, and he literally just takes over the government. And people are supportive because they are so anti the government at the time that they believe that this person can kind of rectify or fix the situations in Italy. He uses propaganda. So this is Mussolini here. He's doing the work, doing labor himself. This is a picture of a kid who's looks like he's almost on fire. You see the Soviet Union hand here, the Jews. There's a lot of anti-Semitism or anti-Jewish feeling in Italy. It's a very Catholic-dominated country, and they focus on that. We also see Mussolini here. I don't speak Italian, but feel free to Google whatever that means and let me know. But these are the propaganda images to put out there to kind of gain this support for Mussolini. This is the Fascist Party headquarters in Italy. This is supposed to be Mussolini's face. This is a building in Rome, Italy. This is where the headquarters are. And this is his face looking down at everybody in the plaza. And it says C, 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 which if you don't know means yes. So saying yes to the Fascist Party. And this is the idea that Mussolini is always watching you. We got our eyes on you. We have secret spies. We have the black shirts. Don't mess or go against Mussolini. These ideas of Mussolini's, of this fascist, is going to lead to another person in Germany who is also going to be a fascist, who's going to run things the same way. And this is Adolf Hitler, who I know everyone's heard of. And this is the swastika, which is the symbol of the Nazi Party. And here's Hitler posing with some children, kind of creepy. But what allows Hitler to take over is there's some other issues in Germany besides just the Great Depression and besides the problems with the Treaty of Versailles. There is a new government after World War I who takes over in Germany. They create a whole new constitution, a new government, and they are called the Weimar Republic. This is not Weimar in German. This gets pronounced like a V. And whenever you have an IE combination, the second letter gets pronounced like a hard vowel. So this is Weimar Republic. Here's the deal with them. They stink. Nobody in Germany likes them. They are forced. This is a new government that Britain, France, and the Allies after World War I forced Germany to create. They're elected, but they are weak. Nobody in Germany really supports them. They can't get things done. They don't get laws passed. They don't solve any problems. And the first thing they are forced to do after they take their kind of oath of office is to sign the Treaty of Versailles, saying Germany accepts blame. Germany loses their colonies. Germany loses land here and over here. And Germany is forced to pay billions of dollars to the Allies. Nobody likes that in Germany, and people are outraged. So this new government that steps in is going to be faced with the Great Depression, and they can't solve the problems because they're too weak, which is going to allow a person like Hitler to get elected. And Hitler is not, just to kind of key here, Hitler does not overthrow the government. He is actually elected into office. We'll get into Hitler more in class. I want to save Hitler for another time, but these are the issues going on in the 1920s, late or early 1930s, which we have this anger, fear going on, kind of the age of anxiety going on in Europe, which is going to allow fascism to kind of take hold. Because when people are scared, they generally are willing to elect somebody, especially if they're economically scared, to bring someone into power who might have some kind of radical or outrageous ideas as we look back on it. So that's what I got. As always, any questions, write them down. Let me know. Have a good day.